Staying in Contact. I'm London Mitchell. Each week at this time, we take a few minutes to discuss issues facing our neighborhoods in Northwest Ohio and to introduce you to individuals addressing those issues. Sometimes we do get into the weeds, but hopefully you'll glean some information that may spur you on to roll up your sleeves and get involved as we all work together to improve the quality of life in our neighborhoods. My guest this week is State Representative Michele Grim of Toledo. She is sponsoring what's called the Ohio Medical Debt Fairness Act. I'm rather intrigued by the effort to essentially separate our medical debt from our credit ratings.
When I was on Toledo City Council in 2022, we passed an initiative that I spearheaded around um, eliminating medical debt for tens of thousands of Lucas County residents. And that passed in November of 2022. It really took off across the country. I will say so far, that initiative has canceled debt for approximately 43,000 Lucas County residents. Um, but that has been a lot more far-reaching across the region. We've actually canceled debt across the region because who we partnered with, Undo Medical Debt, uses philanthropic dollars. So for Toledo, we use the ARPA dollars. Lucas County, I think, used some operating dollars. But to further the reach, Undo Medical Debt used some philanthropic dollars. So across the region, we canceled debt for about 112,000 people. So my bill it's a bipartisan bill with Representative Gene Schmidt, is a different bill. What it would do is it would do three things. It would ban providers and debt collectors from putting medical debt on credit reports. The second thing it would do is it would cap interest at 3%. So if your medical bill does go to collections, they can only charge you a 3% interest rate. Right now, it could be 8%, 12%, or even higher. The third thing it would do is it would ban wage garnishment. Because we feel like that your wages should be going toward feeding your family, not paying off old hospital bills. There are other ways that medical debt can be collected, and in wage garnishment, I think, is a very aggressive practice that harms a lot of people. So those are the three things that it would do, and I think it would help a lot of people in the state immediately. And again, like I said, it's a bipartisan piece of legislation. I'm grateful to have a Republican joint sponsor on it, and then also some both Republican and Democratic co-sponsors.
To me, it sounds like you're tackling some very aggressive goals, and I know I'm playing the devil's advocate with you.
Yeah, no. So look, I think these are um, typically very aggressive practices that hurts hardworking Ohioans. When you Medical debt is a really poor indicator of credit worthiness. Medical debt is it's debt of necessity. It's not debt of luxury. You didn't purchase a car that you weren't able to afford, or you couldn't make payments on. This is usually something that people don't plan on having. You don't plan on breaking a leg. You don't plan on getting cancer. There are plenty of other ways that hospitals or debt collectors or collection agencies can recoup costs, and people do want to pay off their medical debt. It's just that we're giving people a fair and fighting chance to get ahead. If you do put medical debt on credit reports, that can lower their score and really harm their chances of getting a mortgage, getting an apartment, even getting a job. A lot of employers these days look at credit reports to see, okay, like, w what are the like any factors that they have, and if they see that they have a poor credit score and they may not necessarily realize that it's medical debt, that's an unfair advantage for a lot of people. So they can't get ahead. So the other thing with wage garnishment, like that's again, a very aggressive practice. There are plenty of other ways that um, hospitals and other providers can collect on a bill. They can come up with payment plans, that kind of thing. And we're also not telling them that you can't send it to collections. We're just saying you can't do these three things. So there are plenty of other ways. They have other tools. These are, again, these would just give people a fair chance to help pay off their bills.
You represent a primarily Democratic district, or a strong Democratic district, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
But we have a supermajority Republican presence in the state legislature. How do you reach across the aisle? How do you work with the Republicans to make sure you're adequately representing the Toledo area?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think this bill is a really good example of something that people really resonate with. Every corner of the state, somebody had like people have issues with medical debt. And when I reached out to my joint sponsor, Representative Jean Schmidt, she's in the Cincinnati area. She got it immediately because again, this isn't a Democratic or Republican issue. It's a really truly a bipartisan issue, and things like this, making sure that we're taking care of people, I think really resonate across the aisle. And so I was very excited that she was on board. Um, she's dealt with this like in her family with friends, and so when you find some common ground like a bill like this, you can reach across the aisle and work with those across the aisle. Even though we are in the super minority, you can find some common ground on issues, especially something like medical debt.
I'm London Mitchell. This week we are staying in contact with State Representative Michele Grim. She represents the 43rd District, which encompasses West Toledo, Washington Township, Ottawa Hills, to include the Old Orchard neighborhood, the University of Toledo, and Secor Gardens. Do you, Michele Grim, ever feel your duty to represent your constituents weighs heavy on your shoulders?
I don't really see it as a weight on my shoulders. I see it as a big responsibility. I see it as a responsibility to be a voice for my constituents. But I see it as a privilege. I see it as, something I'm lucky to do. Um, I feel lucky to be the voice of my constituents in the legislature. And yes, some days can be frustrating, but other days can be very rewarding, especially um, when you're working on pieces of legislation that would make a difference for people. And making sure that you are the voice of your constituents and fighting for what your constituents want and need. And we do hear from constituents all the time. And, I'm grateful for that. So that's what I would say. I don't think it's a big weight. I think it's a privilege, and I think it's, a huge responsibility that I take very seriously.
My first conversation with you, very brief conversation with you, happened while you were still, I believe, on the city council
Mhm.
at National Train Day.
Yes.
Do you still support the idea of increased passenger rail through our area?
Absolutely. So I have the privilege of being the ranking member on transportation. And for your listeners, if you don't know what a ranking member is, so basically it's the highest Democrat on a committee. So you have the chair and the vice chair, and that's usually the majority. And the minority person is the ranking member. So I'm the ranking member on transportation. I also have the privilege of sitting on the Ohio Rail Development Commission. I was appointed by the speaker yet again this General Assembly. This is my second term to be on the Ohio Rail Development Commission. And last General Assembly, the governor agreed to put in a proposal to the Federal Railroad Administration on two different corridors. The 3C&D, so Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, but also the Cleveland, Toledo, Detroit line. Both of those are still moving forward. The Rail Development Commission submitted their gap analysis to the FRA. And then I think they're going to come up with a plan very soon for the second phase. So yeah, I'm a huge supporter of passenger rail. I think it would be a huge benefit to this area. We have a beautiful train station already ready to go that does have Amtrak service. So daytime service, I think, would be great. We have a huge opportunity here of where we're located, and especially close to Michigan, partnering with Michigan. So we have a lot of opportunity. So yes, I'm still a huge supporter of passenger rail. And hopefully we can continue that momentum with the corridor ID program.
My guest is State Representative Michele Grim. And the best way to contact you?
So they can email my office. So I am at rep 43 at ohiohouse.gov. You can also go to the Ohio House website. So it's ohiohouse.gov. My email is on there. My aide Lily is wonderful. We make sure that we that we respond to every constituent with issues. We do a lot of casework around if you have issues with a state office like Medicaid or unemployment. You can reach out to us and we can help you with that state agency. Or if you want to comment on a piece of legislation that I'm in a committee, or that I'm co-sponsoring or joint sponsoring, you can certainly email us that way. So that's how they get in touch with me. But yeah, feel free to reach out anytime. And if you have any questions on how to submit testimony, we can help you with that as well.
State Representative Michele Grim.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be the representative of the 43rd House District. And, if you ever have any issues with a state agency, or if you want to voice your concerns or support on a bill, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. And so again, thank you for having me on.
That's our program for this week. I invite you to contact me through my webpage, londonmitchell.news. And please accept this invitation to join me again next week as we continue staying in contact.
Previous installments of Staying in Contact with London Mitchell are available on the Stream 419 app, Spotify, and londonmitchell.news.